You're listening to Your Superpowered Mind on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that investigates the innate power within your brain to create lasting change.
Hi, everyone. This is Kristin Maxwell, and you're listening to Your Superpowered Mind. In this show, we take a look at our guests' transformational journeys so you can learn tools and tricks for how to transform your own life. Our guest today is Joie Cheng, and we're going to be talking about how to improve self-esteem. Joie is the queen of transformational book publishing. She is a publishing coach, an author, speaker, mentor, healer, and in addition to that, a yoga teacher. She is the founder of Illuminate Your Self-Love and also the best-selling author of her book, The Naked Truth, A Woman's Journey to Self-Love. Joie, welcome to Your Superpowered Mind.
Thanks, Kristin. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I'd love to have you have this opportunity to talk to you. So my first question is always, what superpower did you uncover as a result of mastering your mind?
Well, so I have something that I call a mind Jedi, like a super, ninja mind Jedi trick. And so, what I discovered is that I can take a belief that is a limiting belief and I can turn it into an empowering belief. And so that is one of my superpowers.
Wow. That is truly an amazing superpower. For those of you who are maybe not as familiar with how limiting beliefs stop us from being what we want. That's great. So tell me, how do you do that?
Yeah. So for example, I had realized that there were a couple beliefs that I had that were limiting myself, that were limiting, basically putting conditions on my own happiness. So I had a belief that if I got married, I'd be happier. And I had a belief that if I was single, I'd be miserable. And so I just said, how do I know that, being married is going to make me happier? I'm sure there's a lot of people that are married who are unhappy. And how do I know that being single is going to make me miserable? What if being single was the best thing that I ever did? And so just by flipping those beliefs, it created space for a different possibility.
Wow, that's great. So how do you remember to keep staying in that empowering belief? Did you have a process that you followed with that?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, just in those, just by asking those questions, it really shifted, the energy around it for me and gave me the courage. I was actually in an abusive relationship for 4.5 years, when I realized that I had those beliefs and so it gave me the courage to finally end that relationship for good and realize that I needed to learn to love myself, because I really didn't know that I didn't love myself until I was in that relationship. And it made me realize that I needed that.
Wow. That's really powerful. So what did you change as the result of being able to flip your limiting beliefs? Like, what changed about your life or how you live life now?
Yeah, well, so another thing that, really attributed to that was my spirituality, was the understanding that I believe that we are not just human beings having a spiritual experience, that we're really spiritual beings having a human experience, and the understanding that we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are mostly, if not all, conditioned beliefs, that things that have been passed down to us through society, through our culture, through our family. So they're not even our own, and they're not true. The truth of who we are is that we are divine and perfect, and but we're also human, and so that's why we have doubts. But that understanding really helped me also with my mind, because it was helping me to not attach to those thoughts. Because a lot of times we experience suffering because we attach to those thoughts that we have, that we're not good enough. And our fears and our limiting beliefs and our doubts about ourselves. But that's really not the truth. So when we can see it and be the observer of it rather than, becoming attached to it, then that's when we have power.
Right. How did you learn to or what was the process of learning to even observe your thoughts? Because I think so many of us go through just living life without even recognizing that these thoughts are maybe even separate from us. Like how did that come about?
Yeah, so meditation, was a big part of that for me. So just becoming aware, doing a mindfulness practice. I did like a 30-day mindfulness practice where, I just would sit and, be silent and just notice, a thought. And instead of, sometimes we might have this idea that we want to not have any thoughts, right? Like we got to meditate so we just don't have thoughts. And, even the people that are most experienced meditators that meditate like hours a day or, years, and they like say, I think that the longest they can go without a thought is, I don't know, maybe 8-10 seconds, or, it's not very much. I mean, it's really not, or maybe even less than that. Like it's so that's not really probably a goal that you should have when it comes to meditation, because, it's pretty unrealistic to have, no thoughts ever in your mind. But it's more about awareness, right? It's about coming back. Like when you notice you have a thought, is going, okay, like one of the things that I do is I just notice it as a cloud, in the sky that's passing by. And you're just like, okay, so I'm just noticing that thought, and that's where the observer comes in then, where you're not attaching to it, rather than like, oh, yeah, I don't think I don't know, can do this thing that I'm afraid to do. And what if this happens? And then you start spiraling down and like following that sort of rabbit hole, right? Versus like, oh, okay, so I'm noticing that, there's some fear, or I've got this thought, and, and then just, you can, if you're a visual person, like I'm a visual person, so I would just imagine, like literally these thoughts like clouds just, passing through the sky.
That's great. Have you been meditating for a long time? Or
yeah, I mean, I can't say that I have consistently been perfect, and meditating for
right.
The whole time, but, I've kind of gone in and out with it. But yeah, I'd say I don't remember like exactly when I got introduced to meditation, but probably at least 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know what? We're going to have to take a quick break. But when we do come back, I want to hear a little bit more about your story, your book, because I know that is the, talking about how you got yourself out of deep depression and increased your self-esteem. So I would love to get some more idea of how exactly you did that and what listeners maybe can do. Before we go, how can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is joiecheng.com. So that's JOIECHENG.com.
That's great. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a minute.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Your Superpowered Mind, and we're talking to Joie Cheng about how to improve self-esteem. And Joy, you have a very powerful book about your own journey to self-love. Maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about the book and your story.
Sure. So I was in a long period in my 20s where I was really depressed, and I even had, suicidal thoughts. I had a hard time getting out of bed. I would cross this bridge on the way to work, and I would have thoughts about, like, I wonder what would happen if I jumped off this bridge. And so it was, obviously a dark time in my life, but also a really confusing time because there was nothing that was going bad in my life. It wasn't like something had happened, like a really terrible breakup or a horrible loss, like someone close to me had died, anything like that. I had a good job. I, had family and friends that cared about me. I was in a relationship. So things were good in my and I didn't tell anybody. And then I ended up in an abusive relationship. And then it was at that point when, like I mentioned earlier, that I realized that I didn't love myself. And so I decided I needed to end that relationship and learn to love myself. So I made that decision, and then the universe started bringing, opportunities into my life to support me in learning how to love myself. And so then it was through that and through, being on my purpose, living my purpose, then I, kind of looked back and realized that I didn't have that depression anymore. And, to be honest, it's not that those thoughts, don't occasionally still come up, but usually, it's like a very fleeting thought. It'll be like, oh, maybe I'll kill myself. It's the second later. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And there's just no energy behind it. And so, what I've realized, I think, is that I heard someone once say that, depression is anger turned inwards. And so, sometimes if you haven't been in that place, you may think like, well, that person's just sad. You should just be happy or something, like it's not about being sad. And I know that sometimes, when we hear about someone killing themselves, people may think like, wow, that's so selfish of them. And if you're not in that place, it's hard to, I think, really understand. But, because I've been there, I have so much empathy and compassion, and I get that, the person did that because they were suffering so much that they just wanted to end their pain. It's not that they wanted to end their life. They wanted to end their pain, and they didn't know how else to end it. And, they just aren't in a space to even think about other people. So for me, even though I didn't think people cared about me when I was in that place, I didn't realize I was angry at myself. I projected it onto other people. I was kind of angry at other people for thinking that they didn't care about me. And, but even though I had that thought, I knew that if I did kill myself, that my family would be really upset. And so that was like the thing that kept me from killing myself. But it was a really like difficult place to be because I felt stuck. I felt like I couldn't die, but I also didn't want to live, and it wasn't until I shifted that focus and started learning to love myself and, just living my purpose that shifted for me. So it was almost like when I kind of took it away from actually trying to not be depressed and to just love myself and live my purpose, that I was able to heal from that. And I didn't, do any therapy. I didn't take any medication. And I'm not saying that, that isn't good for some people, that that might be appropriate for you, but just to know that like that wasn't my path. So.
Wow. So how did you, because one thing that's so powerful about your story is you were able to make the decision, to make the decision of I'm going to learn how to love myself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think about that? Like what gave you the strength or the power or the ability to be able to? Because so much of changing is deciding like, okay, I am going to do this differently.
Right. I think that, it's true. I mean, it's a journey. It's not like things happen overnight, but you can make a decision. I mean, in a split moment, right? Like it takes a minute or second to make a decision, right? And to make that decision. And I didn't even know if in the moment I realized how powerful a decision that was, but it's like I just decided, and then the universe brought those things to me. It was like, okay, this is what you want, because the universe is always wanting to give us what we want. But a lot of times we're not sure what we want, or we've got, we're like part of us wants it, part of us doesn't. And so we kind of send mixed messages. And I think that's why we don't get what we want, but when we're really clear and like, this is, I just knew it, like I needed to do that. And so I made that decision.
So if, I know there are so many of us out there who have, just different extremes of worrying about self-esteem or lacking self-esteem. And some of us, it's constant. And for others, it's, just very occasional. I mean, what do you have, if somebody is struggling with self-esteem, do you have any recommendations or tips or any questions they could do? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so there's several practices, I actually share in my book. And one of the practices that I did was this thing where I found this Facebook group called 100 Days of Self-Love. And so every day for at least 100 days, I would write in my journal something I loved about myself, and I would post in the group. And, actually, to be honest, at the time when I found the group, it felt like a big thing. Like I didn't know that I could actually do that. I didn't think I could actually find 100 things to love about myself. It felt like a big stretch. but I was willing to give it a shot. And so I, started doing it. And I not only did the whole 100 days, I went on to do over 365 days. And I don't even remember like at what point I kind of stopped doing it. But, that was a really powerful practice because it retrains our mind, because we tend to, just naturally, our minds tend to be very critical of us and naturally just say, the things that we don't like about ourselves. We're always talking to ourselves, look in the mirror, especially as women, right? And we start like noticing the things we don't like about us, the way that we look, and and just the critical mind is constantly talking to us. And so when we're able to shift that focus and to find things that we do love about ourselves, then our mind will it can be retrained, and it takes practice. That's why it's like doing it every day, is really powerful. And also I think doing it in a group, you can do it on your own, you can journal about it and it's powerful, but if you do it in a group, it's even more powerful because there's this thing called synergy where 1 + 1 is, equals 3 when you have a group of people together that are, coming together for a common purpose. And if you're, willing to post in the group, then you can see what other people post too, and it can inspire you. And maybe there's things that you didn't think about that, you'll think of when someone else posts something. And the other thing about that practice is that you start realizing that you love yourself already right now, that you can start with where you're at, so start with the things that are easy to love about you. So maybe you love your hair, you love your eyes, or, something like that's just really easy. And then eventually, the goal would be to, I believe that self-love is not about loving just like the good parts of us, but really embracing all of who we are, so both what we call like the light and the shadow. So especially the parts that we don't want people to know about us, the parts that we, don't think are very good, is like when we can love those pieces of us, like that's real self-love.
That really is self-love. And sometimes it's even hard to even tease out necessarily what it is we don't love about ourselves. We just sort of have this general malaise or dislike or feeling that something's not right. So I could see how it would be powerful to really start looking for what is lovable about you, no matter what. So do you know, is the Facebook group still there?
It is still there, yeah. And it's a private group. It's a closed group. So nobody will see what you post. I'm not sure if they'll see, like, if you're a member of the group, but I know that it's not like just a completely open group.
Good. So it's not like everybody in the world sees it.
Yeah. Although I do encourage you, if you're willing, because sometimes I would post actually on my personal page, like, I love this about myself. I'd say something like my post for the day would be something that I love. So, I encourage, if you want to like extra credit, I suppose, post on your personal page and just, see what happens. Because I think that, people are inspired by people that do love themselves, because it is, I think it's such an epidemic in our society, and like, so what's the word, like natural or common to put ourselves down,
Yes.
So yeah, it's, we like to see people that are willing to not do that, I think, because there's a part of us that wants to be able to do that. Right.
Right. So there's a part of us, even as we put ourselves down, that recognizes the power and the light in people who don't totally put themselves down. So that's really very nice. So, in your bio, it says that you work in book publishing. Can you tell just a little bit about what you do in that area?
Yeah, so I kind of joke that I fell into book publishing. It wasn't something that I was planning on doing. When I wrote my book, I was actually working with women and helping them love themselves so they could live their dream life. And so, I was inspired to write my book to share my story, and then to inspire other people to share their story, and then to use it as a tool to grow my business. So those were my 3 intentions. But then after publishing my book, I had people reach out to me and say, hey, I have this event coming up and I'd love to have you speak at this event. And I had never done a speaking event before. And, I doubled my income in 3 months. I got my highest paying client. I've been on, podcasts with millions of listeners all over the world, and like so many just amazing things. And then the greatest part is just knowing that I've left my legacy and that, impact forever in the world. And that peace in knowing that, if I were to die like tomorrow, that I don't have to worry about, what kind of impact did I make. And so that's just really inspired me to help other people I was just like, this is such an amazing feeling and experience that I want everyone else to have this experience. And so that inspired me to shift the focus of my business. And so, I do occasionally, I still take clients on that, are struggling with self-love, but my main focus is, I believe we all have a unique story. And when we're willing to share that story, to be vulnerable, that, it not only heals us, but it heals the world. And that it's through our stories, through our vulnerability, that we really feel connected to each other. And that's the thing that I think is scary for a lot of us, and myself included, because we're afraid of being rejected. But then the truth is, the vulnerability is what leads to the connection. And that's, I think, what we all really want,
Right. So do you have people who come to you who have books already, or do you help people write their books? I'm just curious, because I do know there are lots of people who are, I think the process of writing a book in and of itself could be healing too.
Right. So, so it's kind of both. I mean, I have people that come to me that are like, okay, I know I want to write a book, or, I've always wanted to write a book, or I have a story inside of me, but I don't know how to get it out. And so, I help them through the process of writing their book. So, guiding them through what to do and how to structure it. And then the accountability and the support. And, there's just a lot of things that you don't know. Like, I know when I wrote my book, I was like, where do I start? Right. It feels like such a big thing. So you definitely want to have someone that, has been there, that knows the process. And especially when you're sharing your own story, I think I think sometimes what keeps people from writing their story is that they might be afraid to go back into the painful moments in their life, and I get it. And it can be scary, and you are going to, you probably will experience some of that same pain that you went through. Like, I know for me, I actually went through what I call a very dark night of the soul, where I had a night where I actually had those thoughts of killing myself come up again. And I had an energy behind it that I hadn't had since, that time in my life. And it was scary. But I was sitting, in the bathroom, and I just said, I said a prayer to God. I was like, God, what's the gift in this? Because I do believe that there's always a gift. And so when I asked that question, the answer I got was that I needed to go through that experience because it would help me connect to people that are feeling that way right now, and connect me back to that time in my life when I felt that way, so that I could better connect to my readers. And I, haven't had that experience since then. So, having someone, I think, like me, who, I'm also, in addition to a coach, I'm a healer. And so I can hold that space. I can do some energy healing with my clients if they need it, and just be that space for them to know that they're safe and that they're okay, whatever they're going through when they're in that process of writing their book, that they're going to realize that they are so much stronger. Because in the moment, it can feel like, well, why is this happening? I had that thought of I've done so much work on myself. Why am I back in this place? And then it was wait, okay, that's not really the best question to ask in this moment. It was what's the gift, and so that's just, again, that, the power of a question and empowering question. So I do help people that, haven't started, but we also have clients that, have already written their book. And then, we say that actually I have my business partner and I work with our clients together, and a successful book is 5% writing, 95% marketing. Right. So, but we say you're a best-selling author, you're not a best writing author. So it's not how well you can write. It's really about, the marketing. Right. And so we help our clients to market their book in a way that is going to make them, thousands of dollars. And if that's what they want, it depends on your motivation, your, why, because some clients, they just want to write a book and leave their legacy. Right. They don't really care. It's not about, maybe they don't have their own business, and it doesn't really matter to them how many books they sell, but other people really want to use it as a tool to grow their business. And it's definitely one of the best. Personally, I think it's one of the best investments you can make in yourself and in your business. But yeah, if that's your intention, then we definitely help you with that as well. And I also do work with clients to grow a speaking business and a coaching business, because I'm also a speaker and a coach. So I have clients that, I have clients that come to me for all of them. And then I have clients that are just I just want to write a book, or I just want to grow my coaching business, or I just want to grow my speaking business. So really whatever, it depends on what they are coming to me with and what their needs are.
Wow. You do a lot. You do lots of things. And how amazing to think that you started out from a place where you really didn't like yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know it. So,
Right.
and I mean, honestly, you probably, if you talk to my friends, they probably would not have known that, and I mean, of course they didn't get when I was in that abusive relationship, why I was still in it. Cause they're like, you're amazing. Why would you be with this guy? Right. But when you're not in it, like it's hard to understand because obviously it's not all bad, there's good and bad and everybody, right? Like good things and bad things. And and you're not emotionally like invested,
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. One of the things that seems to be coming up is there's like so many people even who commit suicide a lot of people don't even know that they're really depressed or are struggling. So it's a very interesting, I don't know, interesting is not the right word. It would be really great to give people, the hope to say, okay, let me turn this around and there's hope for me, and what is the gift in this situation? Because I do think that in our struggles, we really do, we're learning skills that are going to help us help others, which you definitely are doing.
Right. Yeah. And I when the whole thing with Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain happened, I know that, I saw people posting about like, look out for your strong friend or, and I thought that was great because I think that, sometimes, people might be like, well, what are the warning signs? And, to be honest, sometimes I don't know if there are. I mean, I know for me, like I, said, I didn't tell anybody when I was going through it. And even afterwards, like the only person up until, I guess, I don't know, maybe, since my book has come out and stuff, like I've been a lot more vocal about my experience, my journey. But like, I hadn't told anybody before except for my dad, and so I know that I think that's common, where people it's, and then when I did post it on Facebook, I had like a friend that was like, oh my gosh, she's known me for a long time. And she's like, I had no idea. And you always seem so positive. And it is like usually can be the people that you least expect, because I don't know why it's hard to admit that you're, struggling. And especially when you're, I think, in such a light, like when you're a celebrity or, just doing big things in the world, it can be like, you can feel this pressure of like people look up to me and people, like to admit that you're struggling can be a hard thing to do. But that's what I believe I'm here to help, with the world is to help like, be vulnerable myself so that I can hold that space for other people to give them permission that it's okay to admit that because we are all human. We all go through, no matter how successful you are, like, we all have challenges and days that we, probably like want to give up or don't know if we're really making an impact or, like all of those things. Right. And so being willing to share that, it just gives other people the permission to know that they can as well and that they're not alone.
Right. And I do love, the part of your story is like really to let people know that you can, there's this sense we have that we have beliefs and that they're set, but you can have a belief. And actually, if it doesn't really support what you want or who you want to be in the world, you can learn how to adopt a more empowering belief, like you did with finding evidence. So thank you so much. So it looks like we're getting short on time, but can you remind the listeners again where they can find you and more about all of, everything you provide?
Sure. Yeah. So again, if you want to connect more with me, you can go to my website, which is joiecheng.com. That's JOIECHENG.com. And there's actually, if you go to my site, there's a couple free gifts there. So there's a 7-day self-love challenge that if you sign up, basically you'll get an email every day for 7 days with a different self-love practice. So we talked about, one of those on this interview, but there's 6 other practices. And then you can also, if you're, listening and you're thinking, maybe there is a story inside of me that, the world needs to hear, then I would love to talk with you about that. And so you can schedule a complimentary clarity breakthrough call with me.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story with us today. And listeners, thank you all so much for being here. Based on what we've heard today, remember to look at your beliefs and noticing if your beliefs and your thoughts are really negative about yourself, maybe consider trying a challenge. Looking at Joie's practices. So between now and next time, go out and remember that you do hold the power to change and transform your world.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.